Well, hey, what do you say? Did you hear the latest news? Pardons for sale, pardons for sale. It is Pardon Palooza, ladies and gentlemen, in the Trump White House. Not a big shocker, seeing how the grift is the game for convicted felon Donald Trump. But I wanted to highlight some of the most recent egregious pardons that Donald Trump has been peddling, courtesy of his ability to grant pardons and commutations, an exclusive privilege and right that he has to do as the president, which again underscores the importance of what? Voting, so that we don't get somebody like Donald Trump in the Oval Office again. But let's go through some of them so that you understand the type of people that are receiving the grace of a pardon from Donald Trump. First one we have to start with is the absolute worst. There's a man by the name of Paul Walszac, W-A-L-C-Z-A-K. And I invite you to read up on good old Paul because his backstory is just so gross that it was worthwhile having this convo with all of you great people. So Paul Walszac, age 55, joined his mother's nursing home business in Florida. Yes, I know, I am in Florida. Fraud capital of the world, Florida fraud. So Paul Walszac joins his mother's nursing home business. She sold the company in 2007, and get this, they invested $18 million in a new nursing home venture based in South Florida. And according to the New York Times, they were living a, quote, luxurious lifestyle because, hey, frankly, what other kind of lifestyle are we going to live when we're living in fraud? By 2011, according to federal prosecutors, Paul Walszac stopped paying employment taxes. And this is according to the Times. Between 2016 and 2019, Walszac withheld more than $10 million from the paychecks of the nurses, doctors, and others who worked at his facilities under the pretext of using that $10 million for their Social Security, Medicare, and federal income taxes. Stop for a second. Walszac withheld more than $10 million from nurses, doctors, and others working at his nursing home facilities, you know, the places where they're supposed to be taking care of our elderly loved ones. And he did it under the lie of saying that he was using it for Social Security, Medicare, and federal income taxes. Instead, according to federal prosecutors, Paul Walszac used the money, some of it, because that was a lot, right? Some of the money to buy a $2 million yacht and to pay for travel and purchases at high-end retailers, including Bergdorf Goodman and Cartier. Must be nice. Charged in February of 2023 with 13 counts of tax crimes, he pleaded guilty to 2 of the counts and agreed to pay restitution on November 15th of 2024. Now, I want you guys to understand what was at stake here. He pled guilty. He was supposed to do 18 months in federal prison, and he was supposed to pay back $4.4 million in restitution. Not even the full 10, guys. $4.4 million in restitution, 18-month federal prison sentence. He was literally 12 days away from getting to have to go do that, from what I can read here, when Donald Trump pardoned him. But remember, people, Trump doesn't do stuff out of the goodness of his heart. There's got to be something transactional, and he's got to get something out of it. I mean, that's the whole emoluments issue with Trump. That's the whole issue with Israel and Gaza. I mean, you name it, I could go on and on. Okay, so anyway, so how did Walszac get his pardon? Well, his mother, she... This is where it gets. Elizabeth Fago, or Fogo, F-A-G-O. I'm going to go with Fogo. Elizabeth Fogo, age 74, hosted at least 3 fundraisers for Donald Trump's campaigns. And her other son, Joey, the 2 of them and his wife attended VIP events at Trump's 2017 and 2025 inaugurations. And here's where it gets even dirtier. So you remember the Ashley Biden diary that was stolen, right? So these 2 people, Amy Harris and Robert Kurlander, they're the ones who found the diary, and they were basically selling it to provide it to Project Veritas, a very pro-Trump undercover media group. Well, what did they do? Kurlander and Harris brought Ashley Biden's diary to a fundraiser at Elizabeth Fogo's home in September of 2020, where Don Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle were there. They showed Ashley Biden's diary to a campaign finance consultant for Donald Trump. Then in the end, they obviously gave it to Project Veritas. And now I'm going to keep on going because this is important for you guys to know. And please share this information, right? Elizabeth Fogo and other family members, they spent election night 2020 at the White House. After he lost, they went back for a White House Christmas party. Then she was appointed to the National Cancer Advisory Board, courtesy of Donald Trump. Then investigators got a search warrant in November of 2021 to seek information about potential co-conspirators, including Paul Walszac and Elizabeth Fogo, Kurlander and Harris. Kurlander and Harris pleaded guilty. She got sentenced to 1 month in prison. He is to be sentenced next month. But then here's the thing. Once Trump got reelected, poof, the Trump DOJ suddenly says, we're not going to investigate this anymore. So guess who gets to get by? Fogo, Paul Walszac, and Project Veritas, right? So this is why you should be upset about this. Instead of giving pardons to people that merit it, what do? Well, Ms. Fogo ends up spending $1 million to go to a, quote, very limited dinner with Donald Trump, sponsored by MAGA Inc. And after that dinner, her son gets pardoned. Oh, but wait, there's more. You want some more Ginsu knives, people? Let's roll. This week as well, Trump pardoned Todd and Julie Chrysley after they were convicted in 2022 of conspiring to defraud banks in the Atlanta area out of more than $30 million in loans through the submission of false documents. They also lived a, quote, luxurious lifestyle. Todd and Julie Chrysley walked away from their responsibility for repayment when he declared bankruptcy. He left $20 million plus in unpaid loans. She was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. He got 12 years. They were ordered to pay $17.8 million in restitution. Poof, poof, gone. Trump pardoned them this week. According to their lawyer, he says, Todd and Julie's case is exactly why the pardon power exists. Thanks to President Trump, the Chrysley family can now begin healing and rebuilding their lives. But Donald Trump says, guess what? I'm going to make it even easier for you because now you've been pardoned. And their daughter, Savannah Chrysley, spoke at the 2024 RNC. She says that her family was called the Trumps of the South. Honey, she says it's not an insult. Somebody needs to point that out, that shit is an insult. Another pardon this week. Remember I told you it's Pardon Palooza. Donald Trump pardons former Culpeper County Sheriff Scott Jenkins after he was found guilty on fraud and bribery charges, sentenced in March. Now remember, people, you got Paul Walszac pleading guilty. You have the Chrysleys going to trial and being found guilty. You have Scott Jenkins, the sheriff, going to trial and being found guilty. So juries of their peers finding them guilty. Trump says, psych, I'm going to pardon. Who cares that you're the jury doing your job? When it comes to this Sheriff Jenkins, this is fantastic. He was indicted in 2023 on 16 counts, including conspiracy, wire fraud, and bribery concerning receiving federal funds. You know what he was doing? This sheriff was doing a cash for badges scheme. So 2 FBI agents undercover, they gave $5,000 and $10,000 in cash each to this sheriff. And what did they get? They were sworn in as auxiliary deputies, badges and guns. Cash for badges, people. That was Sheriff Jenkins, and guess what? He's now been pardoned. Trump also pardoned Michelle Fiore, Nevada Republican Michelle Fiore, in April of 2025 while she's awaiting her sentences on federal charges that she used money meant for a statue to honor a slain police officer, but she used that for plastic surgery and other personal costs. Oh, but wait, there's more. I'm still going. Can we forget? Because I can't, that Trump also pardoned, in a full and unconditional pardon, Ross Ulbricht, who operated the Silk Road, that dark web marketplace. He was convicted in 2015 in New York in a narcotics and money laundering conspiracy, and he was sentenced to life in prison. The Silk Road, let's talk about this. That website sold more than $200 million worth of drugs anonymously. Federal prosecutors also alleged that Ulbricht solicited 6 murders for hire, including one against a former Silk Road employee, although no evidence existed that the killings were actually carried out. He was also found guilty by a jury of his peers for charges including conspiracy to commit drug trafficking, money laundering, and computer hacking. The judge, when sentencing Ulbricht to life in prison, said, quote, this was to send a message to copycats that there are very serious consequences. So, of course, Donald Trump says, we're just going to pardon him. Now, I want to because I could just keep going, right? Because we also know about the January 6th insurrectionists, and that actually is the segue to the next part of what we're going to talk about. So, the new pardon attorney And here's the thing. I want to read this to you because y'all need to see this. This actually exists on the U.S. Attorney, the Pardon Attorney's website. The office is led by the pardon attorney, a career senior executive. The office is non-political and operates under the general oversight of the Deputy Attorney General. For over 130 years, presidents have relied on the office to support the exercise of the constitutional clemency power by providing neutral advice and expertise. But guess who's the new pardon attorney? Ed Martin. Do you remember Ed Martin? Interim U.S. Attorney in D.C.? The guy who was there on January 6th, the guy who's been raising money for the defense of January 6th insurrectionists. I don't know, the guy that also fired federal prosecutors that had anything to do with the January 6th investigations and prosecutions. Yeah, that Ed Martin. Well, guess what he's doing? He personally reviewed the pardon application for, Oath Keepers founder Stewart Rhodes, as well as 10 other people who were convicted of seditious conspiracy. He's reviewing, and those are Proud Boys, don't forget. He's reviewing their new pardon applications because they submitted those once Ed Martin was appointed pardon attorney. And what is Ed Martin also doing? He's also heading up a weaponization committee, kind of department agency. And he's looking into the cases that Jack Smith was prosecuting because he thinks, and so does Pam Bondi, that those cases need to be looking at. Ed Martin has also pledged to investigate the pardons that Joe Biden gave to family members and members of the January 6th Select Committee, saying that those preemptive pardons are, quote, something we've never seen in history. Don't you love the faux outrage? The hypocrisy is effing rich, right? And Ed Martin is also doing the following. He is also going to, and I want to make sure I get this right, he is preparing the pardon attorney's office to take on a new task, to review applications from people with criminal convictions to have their gun rights restored. Look, I am a fan of doing that on a case-by-case basis, but you got to do it on a case-by-case basis. And you and I both know that it's going to be a lot of people that shouldn't get their gun rights restored under Ed Martin. Folks, it is a pardon pipeline that has been created by Donald Trump. It is now being facilitated by the pardon attorney, Ed Martin. Many of you may have seen my Substack conversation with the former pardon attorney, apolitical, non-political Liz Oyer, who did her job well and exceptionally well under Biden and other administrations. And when she and I had a chance to speak on Substack Live, she made it very clear, this is a non-political appointment. Pardons and commutations, clemency, this is not something that should be driven by political gain, by political motivations. And look, let's be blunt. Does that happen here or there? Of course it does. Does it happen under a Democratic president? Of course it does. But is it so brazen and grifty like it is here with Donald Trump? It is a Donald Trump specialty. This pardon palooza is a Trump specialty. It's disgusting. And the reason why I wanted to share this with you guys is because you need to know what is happening in real time. We are looking at the destruction of our country through Doge, and we're looking at all this other egregious stuff happening with the immigration kidnappings. But this is the other stuff that's going on right now. Knowledge is power, people. Now you know the disgusting cases, the people that are getting pardons courtesy of Donald Trump. Be mad, be outraged, demand accountability. Because you know what? We got to scream the truth from the rafters because you're not going to be getting it anywhere else. Katie Phang here. The truth matters now more than ever. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for watching.